As we go through life, we're faced with lots of difficult choices. What job do you want? Do you want kids? Who's your favourite TripleJump presenter? It's me, right? Hopefully though, few of you will be faced with the choices that some of our favourite video game protagonists are forced to make. From decisions that will decide who lives and who dies, to choices that may determine the fate of millions of people. We'd hate to be put in a position where we'd have to make that sort of choice. For this list, we're looking at some of the hardest decisions that players are forced to make during some of their favourite titles. It doesn't really matter if the choices have major or lasting consequences, but rather that selecting which route to take is almost impossible. We will be going into some pivotal plot points for our entries today, so a massive spoiler warning is in effect for all of the games on screen. I'm Ashton from TripleJump, and here are 10 horrible decisions video games forced us to make. Number 10. Love, sacrifice or wealth. Fable 2. Here at Team TripleJump, we sometimes daydream about what it would be like to have a genie pop out of the office kettle and grant us a wish. What would we wish for? Millions of subscribers, a brand new state-of-the-art office, enough money to pay James Jenkins? The possibilities are endless! Players who make it to the end of Fable 2 will get the opportunity to choose a wish to come true, though it's incredibly hard to pick between them. If protagonist Sparrow picks sacrifice, the thousands of innocent people killed by Lucien Fairfax will be brought back to life. However, Sparrow will never see their family again. If they choose love, they'll get to resurrect their whole family and their beloved doggo, but it does mean that the thousands killed by Fairfax will stay dead. Alternatively, if you're a complete psychopath, you can sack off both of those choices and instead just choose to take home a cash prize. For most people, the final choice is a non-starter. After all, you have the opportunity to literally resurrect the dead, so why would you choose money? However, choosing between the other two, i.e. the lives of many strangers versus a handful of loved ones, is almost impossible. Number 9. Rewrite the Geth heretics or destroy them. Mass Effect 2. Here's a philosophical question for you. Is it better to live as a mindless drone or die with your free will intact? This is just one of the many awful decisions that players of the Mass Effect trilogy will have to make throughout the series' runtime. Assuming Legion is in the player's party, there will come a point in Mass Effect 2 where he asks to speak to Shepard. They're told that Geth heretics have a plan to unleash a virus on the rest of the Geth that will see them all siding with the Reapers. Not good. There's still hope though, as Shepard has the opportunity to go to the heretic station and eliminate the problem in one of two ways, either by just straight up destroying the heretics, or by rewriting their code in order to force them to abandon the Reapers. The player is awarded Paragon points for rewriting them and Renegade points for killing them, but they are left wondering exactly how virtuous it is to rewrite the heretics. After all, they're sentient beings, albeit artificially intelligent ones, and so players might find themselves questioning just how moral it is to force them to think differently. Number 8. Cure cancer or end world hunger. Saints Row 4. If you're the leader of a powerful country like the USA, it's fair to say that you'll have some difficult choices to make throughout your presidency. One such choice is put before the boss mere minutes into Saints Row 4. Whilst on their way to a press conference, the boss is approached by Vice President Keith David, who tells them there's enough clout for one major bill, but no more than that. The player is then forced to choose whether they want to be the president who resolved world hunger, or that gave the middle finger to cancer once and for all. Of course, both bills would mean serious quality of life improvements for many people around the world, but whichever one you don't pick will see that millions go on suffering. It's a near impossible choice to make, and no matter which one you go for, you're still going to feel like garbage for not being able to pick both. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter which option the player chooses, as the Earth is destroyed by the Xin anyway. Technically, I suppose it does solve both problems, but it's a bit of an extreme way to go about it.
Your style is unorthodox, but effective.
Number 7. Charge the husband or the child molester. L.A. Noire. Based on our experience playing L.A. Noire, it looks like it's hard work being a detective. Between yelling at suspects and having flashbacks to the war, it really does seem like you have an awful lot on your plate. By the time you've made it to the homicide desk, your powers of deduction have already been put to the test numerous times. But when it comes to the case of the Golden Butterfly, your morals come under scrutiny as well. When a woman is found murdered, the prime suspects are her husband, Hugo Moller, and child molester Eli Rooney. All of the evidence points to the husband as the murderer. He doesn't have an alibi, has plenty of motive, and is found trying to burn bloody shoes in an incinerator in the backyard. With that said though, you have the chance to see Eli Rooney is finally punished for his many crimes. Is it worth letting a potential murderer go so that another awful person gets their just desserts? In the end, it doesn't matter which you choose because neither has actually committed the crime in question. Which is a shame really, because we really wanted an excuse to send that disgusting pervert to the gas chamber. Number 6, stand up to Ramsay or let him torment your sister. Game of Thrones. If you've watched Game of Thrones, aside from being horribly disappointed in the last couple of seasons, you'll know that there are a few who stand up to Ramsay Snow and live to tell the tale. He's sadistic, power-hungry and ruthless, stopping at nothing to get what he wants. I'd love to say his counterpart in Telltale's Game of Thrones is no different, but that would be a blatant lie. Telltale's Game of Thrones follows House Forrester as they attempt to navigate the treacherous political landscapes of Westeros. When Lord Gregor Forrester and his eldest son are killed at the Red Wedding, leadership of House Forrester passes to Gregor's third son, Ethan. Soon after, Ramsay Snow shows up at their stronghold Ironrath, demanding the family bend the knee. Ramsay being Ramsay, it isn't long before he's toying with the rest of Ethan's family. Ethan is given the choice to stand up to Ramsay and tell him to leave his sister alone, or remain silent. Snow is a volatile man though, and just one misstep could mean trouble, meaning that the decision regarding what to say is incredibly difficult. Unfortunately, regardless of whether Ethan speaks up or not, he still gets a knife in the neck for his troubles. Number 5, shoot Lee or leave him to turn. The Walking Dead. Telltale's The Walking Dead is a game, or rather a series of games, that forces players to make a whole bunch of unthinkable decisions. But one of the most gut-wrenching comes right at the end of Season 1, when Lee is forced to ask Clementine to either shoot him or leave him to turn. Though the two meet under rather unusual circumstances, Lee and Clementine form a very sweet relationship over the course of Season 1, with the former becoming somewhat of a father figure to the latter. Things soon go south, however, when Clementine goes missing, held captive by a man that Lee and his fellow survivors had wronged. In his haste to find Clementine, Lee is bitten by a walker, and it isn't long before he succumbs to his injury. Facing the inevitable, players can tell Clem to either shoot Lee or leave him. Turning into a walker is not what Lee wants for himself, but putting the young Clem in a position where she effectively has to mercy kill a man who's been taking care of her the whole time is just horrifying. Regardless of which you pick, it's over for Lee, but knowing that doesn't make the decision any easier. Number 4, cut off your own finger or risk not finding your son. Heavy Rain. They reckon that kids cost an arm and a leg, and no one knows that quite as well as protagonist of Heavy Rain and all-round sad dad, Ethan Mars, who is quite literally forced to shed his own flesh in order to secure the well-being of his son. When Sean is taken by the origami killer, Ethan is forced to make an awful lot of tough choices in order to find where the boy is being kept, most of which place him in quite the pickle. Admittedly, choosing to drive into oncoming traffic on a highway, murdering a drug dealer despite him having a family, crawling through glass and ingesting poison all suck, but they're a walk in the park in comparison to having to cut off your own finger. Alright, maybe they're not a walk in the park, but in our opinion they suck significantly less. Whilst trying to obtain another piece of the address where the killer has Sean, Ethan is given just 5 minutes to amputate part of his finger on camera. The implements on offer range from a pair of pliers to a rusty knife, though not one of them is going to make it hurt any less. At least the killer was kind enough to provide a stiff drink. Ethan will definitely be needing it. Number 3, shoot yourself or shoot Ashley. Until Dawn. Until Dawn is a game full of choices that have devastating consequences, though often these don't become apparent until after the decision has been made. Perhaps the hardest choice that the game forces players to make comes about halfway through its runtime. After failing to outrun the Psycho, Chris and Ashley awaken strapped to chairs with nothing but a table and a gun between them. The Psycho tells the pair that Chris must choose whether to shoot himself, saving Ashley, or shoot her instead. Fail to do so, and the saw blades suspended above them will kill them both. Of course, the whole thing turns out to be a prank orchestrated by Josh, who is punishing his friends for their part in the disappearance of his twin sister a year prior. However, Chris's choice has some very real, very deadly consequences. Choosing to sacrifice himself will put him firmly in Ashley's good books, but opting for the opposite will make her proper mad. And see her refusing to open the cabin door for Chris later in the game, resulting in him being torn to shreds by Wendigos. Still, in the moment, I'm not sure I could shoot myself to save a girl I had a crush on, but hey, that's just me. Number 2, kill the inhabitants of Vault 34 or free them and leak radiation. Fallout New Vegas. Here's a question. Do you think you could kill the inhabitants of a small nuclear bunker if it meant an already irradiated post-apocalyptic world would have more radiation unleashed upon it? I know it's not a choice I'd want to make, because although radiation is bad, killing people is also pretty bad as well. Sadly, Fallout New Vegas players were forced to make this very choice, upon finding that Vault 34 is leaking radiation into the water used by nearby sharecropper farmers. The protagonists must venture in to find out what's going on. Once they get into Vault 34, they find a whole bunch of people still inside, trapped in an inaccessible part of the vault. The player must choose whether to shut down the reactor, which would prevent further leakage, but doom the people inside Vault 34 to a slow, agonising death from radiation poisoning, or reroute the power so they can open the doors and escape. Doing this, however, will see a huge amount of radiation leaks into the water supply and spoils the crops, causing dozens of people to starve to death. You really are damned if you do and damned if you don't with this one. And number 1, save the town or save Chloe. Life is Strange. They say that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Shut it!
But when the few are those who you care deeply about, it can make choosing between the two incredibly difficult. At the beginning of Life is Strange, protagonist Max discovers that she has a power to rewind time, which she instantly puts to good use by preventing the death of her friend Chloe. Over the following days and weeks, Max and Chloe become close, rekindling the friendship they shared as children. As Hermione Granger would tell you though, terrible things happen to people who mess with time, and it's not long before strange things start going awry, accumulating in a huge storm that threatens to wipe out the entirety of Arcadia Bay. Max is left to make the devastating choice of whether to let the storm destroy the town, or to go back in time and allow Chloe to get shot. It should be easy to choose the lives of everyone in Arcadia Bay over that of one teenager, but all of the heartwarming moments that the pair share over the course of the game make it almost impossible. In case you're wondering, I chose to save the town, but by golly did it feel horrible.